Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. I am Megan, Director of Two Bright Lights, and today we're going to be talking about all things SEO. But don't worry, I'm not the one talking about it because to me, SEO is like this magic, mystical thing that I know is super important, but I can't explain to you very well. So that's why today, Sara Dunn is coming on to talk about SEO for the wedding industry. If you haven't been following her already on Instagram, Sara does SEO, go do that. But wait, don't do it till the end of the webinar because you need to be paying attention to everything. So grab your notebook, coffee, water, whatever you need to get through, and let's get started. So Sara, thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, I am so excited to be here with the Two Bright Lights community. So thank you, Megan, and your team. And don't worry, you don't need anything to get through this. We're going to have fun. We're going to make it simple. And we're going to make sure that everything is tailored to the wedding industry. So you're not going to learn anything that only applies in other industries. Everything I'm going to talk about today applies to you if you're on this webinar. All right. You ready for me?
Let's get going.
Okay. So I'm going to turn on screen share. I've got a little presentation to walk you guys through. Megan is going to be monitoring the chat while I talk with you today. So if you do have any questions, I welcome you to drop those in the chat at any time. And I welcome Megan and the team to interrupt me if there's something super timely related to something I just said. I would love to answer your questions about SEO because one of my biggest goals is to take what seems really technical and scary and make it really approachable for creative professionals and people that don't do search engine optimization for a living. So I'm Sara Dunn. I have a website called SaraDoesSEO.com where I talk all about SEO for the wedding industry. And I'm really excited to join you today to talk about some SEO basics and how you're making SEO too hard. To get started, let's talk a little bit about search engines and how we use them. I want you to know that 93% of online experiences start on a search engine. So that means so many people, including me, when they get on their computer in the morning and start their workday, they often fire up Google or Yahoo or Bing and they search for something. Even if they know exactly what they're looking for, most of the time we no longer type in a website URL when we're starting an online experience. We just go to Google and expect Google to find us what we're looking for, which is great. I love that. There are over 3 billion searches every single day. So odds are you've made a search today, and so have your ideal clients. And what I want more than anything is for you to show up on Google when they search for what you do. I want you to get in front of them when they're doing their research and when they're actively looking to hire someone that does exactly what you offer. So today we're going to talk about how that works. Here's a little bit of an agenda for you. I'm going to cover what is SEO so that you can understand at a high level what is search engine optimization and what do those letters mean and what are we aiming to do here. I'm also going to cover why you should care. So there are so many ways you can market yourself. I know that. Let me talk to you about why you should care about SEO as a great way to market your business. Then we're going to do the breakdown. I'm going to give you 3 guidelines for good SEO. These are the things you really need to know at a basic level to guide any decision that you make that's about helping your website get found on Google. These are super simple. They don't involve crazy words like meta description and alt text and editing code. Don't worry, these will be 3 really easy guidelines you can use. And then if time allows, I always like anyone that comes to a webinar or a presentation that I do, I like you to leave with having actually improved your website or learning something really actionable that you can do today to improve your website. So I'm going to do a little bit of a workshop at the end that's a little bit of a keyword research workshop. So we're going to learn how to figure out what keywords you should go after and how to make a list of those for you to use. So rock and roll. What is SEO? So when you started your day on a search engine this morning, as you probably did, when you searched, certain results showed up first. And Google doesn't exactly tell us why. So it's very obvious every time you look at the search engine results page that Google is ranking things. There's something that's at the first on the list. There are lots of things below it. And Google has made a decision about how it's going to rank some websites above others. Now, they don't exactly give us their roadmap and say, this is why we make some websites rank at the top, and this is why other websites aren't even on Google or they're way back on page 10. They really have a secret formula or algorithm that they use, and they keep it secret, just like Coca-Cola keeps their recipe for Coke a secret. It's a trade secret, so they don't want other search engines to be able to go and exactly copy. So that kind of can make our job a little bit more difficult, but SEO professionals like me actively study what makes some websites move up in the rankings and what makes some websites stay way on the bottom. And then we try to do more of what makes websites rise in the ranks. So that is what I'm talking about. When I say SEO, I'm talking about search engine optimization, influencing search results to get more visibility for my website or my client's website or your website in order to get them to rise in the Google rankings. I want to explain a little bit about search engines' motivation and why Google would choose to make these choices about which sites to show first. The number one thing to realize about search engines is that they want to deliver great, helpful results so that their searchers, their users, are really satisfied. Google makes money when you come to their search engine and you have the possibility of clicking on one of their advertisements. So it's important to Google that you have a great experience on the search engine and they help you find what you're looking for. Let me give you a little bit of an example. Let's say you head to Google and you type in how to fix a clogged drain. If Google returns to you results that are complete garbage about how to fix a flat tire and where to buy a French bulldog or where to find your nearest donut shop, you'd probably be really frustrated because your drain is still clogged and you don't know how to fix it. You might even go say, you know what, Google is not helping me out and I'm going to go try another search engine to find this information. On the other hand, if you type in how to fix a clogged drain and Google returns super helpful results, a really good article right at the top that gives you the step-by-step, maybe they even show you a preview of a step-by-step process for fixing a clogged drain, you're probably going to be pretty happy and you're likely to return to Google the next time you have another question or need help with something. So that is what Google wants to do. They want to find us really good results. And so they're constantly trying to figure out how to return better results for their searchers, how to make sure that they're showing websites with high authority, that have great information. And that's why search engine rankings change almost every day, because Google's always making little tweaks to the way that they rank in their search results, how they rank different sites. So those are algorithm changes. If you've ever heard about that, that's just Google tweaking to try to create an even better product for us as searchers and return better results. So what we're going to talk about today is how to influence Google and other search engines to show that we are the best result for any search that someone is searching for. That is SEO. Now that you know what SEO is, we should probably talk about why you should care. And these are some reasons that wedding vendors specifically should care about SEO. Number one, SEO connects you with vendors who are looking to book someone. So most people are searching for wedding vendors through search engines and they're vetting their options. They're actually looking for someone to book. So they're not just scrolling through Instagram. They're not just browsing things on Pinterest. If someone is going to a search engine and they're searching for wedding venues in your city, they're searching for wedding photographer in your state, they are probably actively looking for someone to hire. So these are people that are ready, and they're ready to vet their options. And it's so important that you are on that list and being considered by couples who are ready for someone to book. I would say that's a big difference between marketing yourself on search engines and marketing yourself on social media and other platforms. The second reason you should care about SEO is that it builds credibility in your area. So vendors who show up on the first Google can seem to be more credible and established. And you might find that if you are ranking well on Google, that you might get more opportunities for collaborations, publication, and again, clients, because you're easy to find, and that first page ranking on Google makes you look very credible to someone who's looking for a vendor for what you do. The third reason to care about SEO is that it allows you to track your results. So you don't need to guess with SEO if your efforts are working. There are a ton of really good tools that help you to track the traffic to your website, like Google Analytics, which I love. Google Search Console is one that I highly recommend for anyone that wants to track the results of their search engine optimization efforts. These are really good free tools that let you actually see the results of your SEO work. So is it bringing in traffic to my site? How long are those visitors staying? What keywords are they using to find me? These are all things we can track, which can be a little bit more difficult in other advertising platforms. So that's one of the reasons I love SEO, because I'm a huge data nerd and I love finding out that stuff. The fourth reason to care about SEO is that it can bring results for the long term. So buying an ad somewhere can be really great, but the exposure sometimes lasts for a limited time. So I highly recommend that all wedding professionals build proper search engine optimization into their website, because if it ranks well, it can continue to do so for the long haul, bringing in traffic for keywords, bringing in traffic for other things that you've optimized for. This isn't a one and done kind of marketing effort. This is a long-term investment in making your website rank. So I really, really like that. All right, I work with wedding professionals every day, and I know that you've often heard about SEO, and you might be thinking that it's too technical or too confusing, or you don't understand it. And if you feel that way, I have one message for you. You're making SEO too hard. So this little guy is how I imagine so many of you feel. If you feel this way, I want to see a yes in the chat or an amen. I, of course, just want to find an excuse to put a French bulldog on the screen because I'm a proud Frenchie parent. But this feeling of I give up is all too common with SEO, because I think we're making it too technical and we're not boiling it down to the basics of appealing to Google. I want you to know that you can do SEO because it's just about understanding people and doing good marketing. And I think that you are absolutely capable of doing both of those things. So understanding people and doing good marketing, that's all we really need to do. Let's keep in mind that Google wants to deliver those great results. So to convince them that your website is a great result, we just need to follow marketing best practices. So we need to make sure that we are getting your name out there on other websites, that you're connecting with other vendors, that you are actively promoting what you do. Those are the types of things that we're going to talk about in our simplified version of SEO. And the 3 guidelines to great SEO. The first will be to be clear, the second is to be helpful, and the third is to be a promoter. And you'll notice that none of these things have anything to do with writing code or entering crazy alt text necessarily. What's even more important than tricks and crazy things that you can do are following these 3 guidelines. So if you guys are ready, let's go ahead and dive into guideline number 1. Guideline number 1 is to be clear. Who are you and what do you do? It's always so interesting to me when I get a new client, like I did a couple weeks ago, who says, Sarah, I really want to rank for wedding photographer in Asheville. We'll use that as an example. And I go and I take a really quick glance at their website before we have our consultation call, and I realize they have not used the phrase wedding photographer in Asheville anywhere on their website. It's really hard for Google to understand what you do if you're not being clear about what you do. So what I see in the wedding industry so often is that people are so concerned about using the same verbiage and looking, in that sea of sameness, that they decide to make up some abstract and fluffy terms. So instead of saying on their homepage, I'm a wedding photographer in Asheville, they might say, I'm a capturer of memories, which is so beautiful. But it does kind of make search engines and probably your visitor have to guess exactly what you do. And Google really likes when we are clear rather than clever. So the number one thing that I highly recommend that you do is to make sure you have clearly used your most important keyword on the homepage of your website. So don't write that you're an event experience designer when you really want to rank for wedding planner. Google needs you to use the keywords you want to rank for. Now, here's the other thing that sometimes happens is that maybe the industry terms sound more impressive. Excuse me. So it's very clear to you that you do event design. It may not be so clear to the average person. So make sure that you are actually using the keywords that are the terms that your ideal customer would search for. Even if you don't exactly do full service wedding planning, you might have to call yourself a wedding planner if you want to be found on Google. That's really important. So no need to use industry jargon. It's really important instead to be clear. Now here's an example that I want to give you. Let's go ahead and imagine that you are a photographer in Fresno, California. You might make sure that there is a paragraph on your homepage that says, Derek Larson is a photographer in Fresno, California. He offers wedding photography, headshot photography, and commercial photography. Very, very clear. And those are 3 important keywords that Derek wants to be found for. So again, he's a photographer based in Fresno, California. He offers wedding photography, headshot photography, and commercial photography. It's very clear for Google and for the person who's landed on that page. That's so, so important. All right, a couple other caveats as we look at our action item for guideline number 1, which is to audit your homepage for clarity. I highly recommend that you do use words. So here's the other issue I often see when I'm auditing a website and the person is not being particularly clear. I recently started working with a client who said, I don't really want there to be words on my homepage because I'd really like the images to speak for themselves. And I can understand as an artist, that sounds really wonderful. The problem is that it's really hard for Google to look at images and fully understand what the website is about. So certainly Google's artificial intelligence is getting better. Maybe they identify that your picture that you're showing is of a bride, but that doesn't mean they're immediately going to say, oh, this person must be a wedding photographer. And I would argue that the average website visitor might also have the same confusion. So if they land on a homepage that has only images and no text, and they see a picture of a bride, is this the website of the makeup artist? Is this the website of the photographer? Is this the website of the wedding planner? I highly recommend that you use those words on your homepage. And that's what I mean by being clear. Now,
Sarah, it might
yes.
be a good time to pop in and answer a question or two that we've gotten. So one thing is, this is from Susan. What if you don't want to use a specific place? Maybe their destination, maybe their, how would you deal with that?
I often hear this, that people, I'll work anywhere, so I don't want to be associated with a certain location. It's very hard to rank on Google if Google doesn't know where you are. And keep in mind that your searcher is actually looking for someone in a specific place, and you're going to miss out on that search if you're not willing to say, I'm located in Louisville, or I'm a wedding photographer in Kentucky. So I would highly recommend that you do somewhere on the homepage, include your home city. Excuse me. And then you can clarify and say that you do destination as well. So that's my recommendation. Don't miss out on that searcher in your area, but feel free to use language that clarifies that you will travel to destination. Anything else, Megan?
So the other one that I think would make sense to address right now is, so you mentioned to use, like in your example, using the term wedding photographer versus capture of memories. Is it okay to use both?
Sure. Yeah, I highly recommend as much text as you want to write. That's wonderful. But don't skip out on that term. That's actually the keyword that you want to be found for. So find a way to weave in both wedding photographer and capturer of memories. Maybe it's, I'm a Louisville wedding photographer who captures memories. That's totally fine. Just make sure you're using that keyword phrase very clearly.
Perfect. Awesome. So we'll have some more questions, but we can keep moving.
Perfect. So before I move past being clear, I just want to share a success story. I started working with a client who wanted to rank for Cleveland event planners, but she had not used the phrase Cleveland event planners on the homepage. Just mentioned that they were an event experience company and that they were located in Cleveland. We added the exact phrase Cleveland event planners to the homepage within the text and within a title on the page and the page title on the screen. And that website jumped 19 spots, so up 2 pages within 3 weeks, just by making that small, simple change. So this is very important and can be very impactful if you do go and make sure that you've clearly used that keyword phrase. So I highly recommend that as one of your takeaways from today. All right, who's ready for guideline number 2? Let's go there. Guideline number 2 is to be helpful. Again, Google is looking for those search results that are the most helpful and the most relevant to the search. So I want you to imagine that you yourself have landed on a certain website. And once you get there, it's really hard to figure out how to navigate around. The language used is not very clear. You don't quite know how to contact the person, or there just isn't a lot to look at there. Maybe it's a really shallow website with just 3 pages, a gallery, an about page, and a contact. That's really not very helpful, and you're probably not going to stay on that website very long yourself. So I highly recommend considering, how can I make my website more helpful, and how can I become more of a resource that really makes that website visitor come to my website and want to stay and look around and browse. So guideline number 2 is to be helpful. Here's a few things to think about. Number 1 is to write thoroughly. So as I just mentioned, more words is better. And sometimes I know that creative people aren't necessarily writers, or they're much more of visual artists. And the tendency is to be like, well, nobody reads all of this stuff that I write anyway, so why bother? And I would argue that it is great for retention and for keeping people on the page, and it's also great for Google. So write as much as you can. Write as much on your homepage as looks good. Write as much on your about page as it takes to tell your story. And on your blog posts, write as much as you can about helpful information, about the stories of your clients and how you impacted their wedding day in that featured wedding blog post. Be thorough in your writing and make sure that you are creating content on your website that people would want to take a look at and read. Super important. The second part of being helpful is to make sure you're using your client's language and the keywords, which I mentioned in the last slide as well. But it's not helpful to the client if they can't understand what you're saying because you're using industry lingo or you're not explaining things thoroughly. So think about what is the average knowledge level of your ideal client and make sure that you're using the words that they would use if they were searching for your site or if they were explaining to their friends what you do. So be helpful by including your client's language. The next way to be helpful is to anticipate your visitors' needs. So once they've landed on that blog post, what else are they looking for? What can you direct them to? Don't let them just leave once they've read that great information. One of the biggest mistakes I see in blogging in the wedding industry for search engine optimization is you put up the post and you end it with the vendor list. And you don't give anybody a next step for where they should go. So in anticipating your visitors' needs, I definitely recommend you create internal links to other content. So that just means a link within your site to another page or post on your site. So say you're writing a blog post that's a recap of the event at Castlewood Farms, and you did another wedding at Castlewood Farms last year. At the very bottom of that post, you might say, did you like Dave and Megan's wedding from Castlewood Farms? Go check out Clint and Joe's wedding from last year. So definitely make those connections. Be helpful in anticipating what someone might want to see once they've visited that page on your site. This is also really good for Google if you do create those internal links because it helps that robot who's going through your website to crawl to another part of your website that is obviously important to you because you link to it. So make it easy for Google to find all of your content and make it easy for your visitor to stay on your site longer. The other thing you might do on a blog post or on another page of your site is to lead people back to more information about your services. So don't be afraid to create an internal link to your services page at the bottom of a blog post as well. Do you need help planning your Castlewood Farms wedding? Learn more about our wedding planning services, and you can link that phrase to the page on your website that's about your wedding planning services. I highly recommend doing that for SEO and for your visitor. The other great thing about this is that it keeps the website visitor longer. So that is something that Google has started to monitor, and it's called dwell time. So when someone clicks on your website in the search results, Google measures how long they stay before they click the back button and return to search. So if Google finds that a lot of visitors click your result on Google and immediately for some reason click back, they will actually demote your website in the rankings and start pushing it down because obviously you've not served your visitor well for some reason. Now, this can happen especially because of page load speed. So if your website takes a really long time to load, over 3 seconds, a lot of visitors will just say, you know what, never mind, there were a lot of other options, and they just click back and they return to the search result. And do know that that is something that Google pays attention to. So we can actually improve our SEO and improve the rankings of a blog post if someone reads that blog post for a long time. It's helpful, it's thorough, it has a lot of content, and then they actually click to another page on your website rather than clicking the back button and returning to search results. So really important to think about where you can send your visitor next to retain them and keep them on your website. So helpful. For that same reason, we want to make your website easy to navigate and use. So we don't want people so confused by your menu or your options or all the pop-ups and crazy things flying at them that they then go, oh, I can't even navigate around here. I'm just going back to the search results and I'll find something else. So that fourth item under being helpful is to make your website easy to navigate. Keep that top of mind always. I always say user experience over design every time. If that like crazy cool little button effect might look cool in the design, but it's a little bit confusing and people aren't sure if they should click it, I say skip it, be clear over clever again, and just keep that visitor on your site and keep them happy and easy to use. All right, the last point under being helpful is posting helpful content regularly. And I'm sure you don't want to hear this, so I'm sorry to have to share it with you, but it is really important to create new content on your website on a regular basis. So in the wedding industry, that generally means keeping an active blog where you're blogging helpful tips, things like for wedding planners, maybe it's how to decide on your guest list, when to send your invitations, how to choose a wedding venue in our area, what's the best month for weddings in our area, those types of things. You can do helpful tips like that, as well as event recaps of your past events that you have planned and managed. So there isn't necessarily, I always get asked, how frequently do I have to blog or update my site? And it really depends on how competitive your market is. So take a look at the other sites that are ranking on the first page of Google or anyone that's ranking above you and see if they are blogging on a really regular basis. And that might indicate to you that you need to blog just as much or even more if you want to rise above them. Now, blogging frequency is certainly not the only reason that Google might prefer their site over yours, but it will give you an idea of how competitive it is in your market and how much the competition is doing. So I don't have a good guideline. I do know that blogging weekly is pretty crazy in the wedding industry, so I don't think that's really necessary in any market. And my goal is generally about once a month. So once a month is what I myself do on my blog, and I think that it's a fairly reasonable expectation for a small business in the wedding industry as well. So that is guideline number 2, be helpful. Megan, any questions on that before I move on?
You betcha.
I'm ready.
Okay, so you were talking about blogging. One question from Stephanie, does it matter what you name the images on your site?
Yes, so this gets a little bit deeper into technical SEO, and I don't think it's particularly necessary. So this is something to just throw in your back pocket if you're not ready for this. But I like when each page of a website is targeting a certain keyword phrase. So maybe your homepage is targeting wedding photographer in Louisville. Maybe your blog post is targeting something like Castlewood Farms wedding. And once you choose that keyword phrase that you are targeting on that page, it's great if you can find a way to weave in that keyword phrase into your image names. Now, what I see as an issue, and I do have a blog post all about this on my site, and it's actually one of the most popular posts on my site. So I definitely go check out the blog there. The mistake I don't want to see you making is spamming your image names with tons of keywords. So I've gotten into websites before and found that someone has named these images like top wedding planner Minneapolis, award-winning blue wedding.jpg, like something crazy long that's just like a big spammy dump truck of keywords. And that is not what I'm suggesting you do here. I'm suggesting that you choose a keyword phrase you're going after with that page or blog post and weave that keyword in while still describing what's going on in the image. So for Castlewood Farms, we might have an image that's called Castlewood Farms Wedding Ceremony, another one that's called Bridal Party at Castlewood Farms. We might have another one that's Centerpiece by Sweetwater Floral. So it's important if you can weave in the keyword, but it's more important if you're describing what's shown in the image. So I hope that helps.
Yes, super helpful. Okay, so obviously the ideal scenario is that you make these changes and your ranking changes. How or what's the best way that you can actually do that to see how your Google site ranking has changed and if it's helping?
Oh, such a good question. I think most wedding vendors, the way they check the keywords they're going after is they actually go to Google and they just type in the keyword phrase and then they scroll through the results and they're like, oh, I'm not on page 1. And then they click page 2 and they scroll and they look for themselves. The problem with that is that you do see personalized results based on your physical location as well as your own browsing history. So sometimes I have to give really bad news when someone's like, I'm on page 1 now. And I realize they're only there because they've been to their own website 8 times. And Google thinks that they want to see that website show up higher. And so for the average person, their website is not showing on page 1. So instead of doing this, where you're scanning the results, I like using a tool called Keyword Rank Checker. And it's a tool where you can actually go in and put in the keywords that you're working on and put in your website domain, and it will scan Google results and tell you what position you're in. So position being like first, second, third on the page, etc., all the way down to 100, which would be page 10. And I don't know the exact URL off the top of my head. I don't know if we can follow up with some links in a follow-up email here, or you can Google Keyword Rank Checker and see if you're able to find that. I think it's made by Small SEO Tools.
Awesome. Yeah, we can send out an email blast to everybody after with some of these links that you've touched on, because I know there's been some questions about that and we want to make sure everyone has the correct resources.
Perfect.
So I think one more question before we get to your next tip is, how do you get an organic search to see who maybe like you're competing with on that keyword? Is it as simple as using an incognito window, or is it more than that?
Yeah, if you haven't gone to a ton of the websites already, then yeah, just go ahead and open an incognito website or tab in Chrome and do a search from there and see who's showing up. That's the easiest way, and it shouldn't be too personalized. It will still be personalized based on location if you're using an incognito tab, but it will have less information about your browsing history. Another way to do it is a tool called SERP Checker, and you can sign up for a free trial of that tool. And that one is really nice, and it will actually let you change your location. So you can pretend that, let's say, you're in Tennessee, but you want to know how someone would actually see your ranking if they were planning a wedding in Tennessee, but they weren't physically located in Tennessee. So maybe you get a lot of couples that come to your area to get married, but they do their planning from where they live elsewhere. You can use SERP Checker to say, well, what are the search results if I'm in Portland for Louisville wedding planner? So hopefully that makes sense, because they will be slightly different based on that person's location versus yours. So SERP Checker is what I myself use. Even though it is a paid tool, they do have a free trial. Good, Megan?
Yep, all good.
All right. All right, I think then we're ready for guideline number 3 for good SEO, which is to be a promoter. So we can do all sorts of work on your own website. We can name those images properly. We can use the right keywords on the website, but Google is not just looking at your website to understand your authority on a certain topic. Google is also looking for clues outside of your website that other people trust you and that your business is a trustworthy one that they would want to show in the search results. So even though we have the best website in the world, there's some things we need to do off the site, and let's talk about those. The number 1 is to share on social media. You're probably already doing this, but definitely make sure every time you have a new blog post, you are posting it to Facebook using the exact URL of the post, not just saying, go to mywebsite.com/blog, put that exact URL of the new post. That can sometimes help Google crawl it faster, and shares of that post can actually help it to rank better. So make sure you're sharing on social media. I know a lot of us use Instagram and that there's no good way to do link sharing there. Don't worry about that too much. There is not a lot of SEO impact to whether you put the link in your bio on Instagram or if you put it in a link tree. Don't worry about that too much. It's more important to share on Facebook. Also Twitter if you have it, even though most wedding professionals either don't have Twitter or don't update it anymore. If you've got it, set up something that pushes out that new blog post to your Twitter account automatically, because that can help the SEO of that blog post. So promote your new content on social media. You can also occasionally promote your old pages. So if you haven't shared your services page on your Facebook page for a while, feel free to make a post that says, we're updating our services for 2020, and we just updated this page with our latest work, and put a link to your services page on a Facebook post. Totally acceptable and may help your SEO. Another way to improve your SEO is through backlinks. So these are links to your website from other websites. And a lot of times these are earned through submitting to wedding publications. So that's one of the reasons I'm so excited to be talking with you through Two Bright Lights today, because they really can help wedding professionals to get those publications and get links back to their site from other major wedding publishers. So when you get a link from someone else on the internet, that is pretty much like a vote for the quality of your website and your business. And I consistently find that the websites that rank the best are those that have been seen on many other websites throughout the internet. Maybe it's national publications, maybe it's regional publications, and maybe it's the websites of other vendors. But it's so important to work for those backlinks. So anything that you can do to get a feature or get a listing can really help the SEO of your website. So last thing I recommend for you is any free listing you can sign up for can positively impact your SEO. Especially when I say this, I'm not talking about like cheap spammy link directories that sometimes SEOs might recommend, but I'm talking about listings on high quality wedding or local related directories. The Knot, Wedding Wire, all of these other listing sites. Even if they don't directly link back to your website, the mention of your brand on these other websites also does have a positive impact. So if there's a free listing site, that's something I highly recommend. And wedding websites are great, but don't forget anything that might be local to you. So does your Chamber of Commerce list local businesses? Is there a local magazine that has a directory of local businesses? Those are great things for you to look out for, because Google can look at those sites and understand that they're about your local area. And if they link to you, then you have stronger authority in your local area. So that's really important and something that I see is overlooked a lot. Don't just go for the biggest links in the biggest publications nationwide. There's great opportunities for you in your more niche local community, maybe your city, state, or town. And don't forget about those, because they can really help you if you're looking to rank in that area. So sign up for those free listings. So again, being seen outside of just your own website is good marketing. So getting those backlinks, getting links from other vendors, this is just something that you're doing that is good marketing for your business, and it's also going to help your SEO. All right, that's guideline number 3. Anything about that, Megan, before we do a little keyword research?
Yes, totally. So Morgan asks, do links from social media or Pinterest count as backlinks?
They don't exactly. They're certainly not as valuable as getting a link from brides.com or something like that, because Google's aware these are user generated. And if they gave you like tons of backlink credit, everyone would just spam Facebook all the time. So Google has said back and forth, we don't use the number of likes or shares of a URL in our ranking algorithm, but SEOs have found that there does seem to be a positive correlation between social activity and positive rankings on Google. So that could be just, added visits, added exposure that actually gets you a backlink from somewhere else. So does a link on social media count as a backlink? Not exactly, but I still recommend sharing links to your website on social media as a possible positive influence.
Awesome. So another question, sort of related. Jeff asks, what about commenting on other blogs with your website link?
Yeah, that actually used to be a really popular tactic to get backlinks. And again, this becomes a more technical topic, but Google created something called no follow links because people were going and creating all of these comment backlinks, and it was a little bit spammy. They weren't actually doing to engage in a conversation. They were doing it just to get links. So most of the time now, comments give you only a no follow link, which provides no value back to your website. So I don't actually promote it as a strategy to go and comment on a bunch of blogs to get backlinks. But if you actually want to engage in the conversation and you think having a link in the comments might bring you some relevant traffic, it's still worthwhile to do. And some SEOs actually believe that there is a good ratio between follow links and no follow. But again, this is a technical one, and that's not a strategy I would recommend spending time on if you've got limited amounts of time.
Yeah, I think that's great. And I agree. They come to seem a little spammy sometimes.
So yeah, I think we've all seen those links that are like, I am a wedding photographer in Kentucky, and they make sure to like link the text, and that's not good.
Exactly. Yes. Alicia asked a good question. How do you even find out where you have backlinks?
Ooh, I love this question. So another tool that does a free trial is called Link Miner, and that will actually look throughout the internet and find any links that you have. It's not always complete, so they might not notice some of your links. There are bigger paid tools that do a little bit of a better job, but you can do a free trial of Link Miner, and that's from the same tool company as SERP Checker that I mentioned earlier. So if you do a free trial of that tool, you'll have access to Link Miner as well. And I definitely recommend doing that maybe once a year just to see if maybe you have some links you didn't even know about. The other cool thing you can do with Link Miner, and this is really fun since you get a few searches on this free trial, is to actually mine the links of some of your top ranking competitors. So where are they getting links from? They might have been mentioned in an article in a local publication that you've never even heard of. And maybe you could pitch a story to that local publication so you could get a link in some press there too. So one of the things that I do as an SEO is actually see what are the links that the best ranking sites have, and how can we kind of emulate this or get ourselves some similar links. So that's a great thing to do with the Link Miner tool if you do the trial.
Awesome. I love that, because most likely you're going to find some things that you didn't even know existed.
Definitely. Yeah. One of the things that I keep finding recently is a site called 3 Best Rated. And it seems that a lot of the best ranking sites are listed on 3bestrated.com. So I would not have known that, except that I've been looking at a lot of backlinks in the wedding industry, and that just keeps showing up. So now I'm sending my clients there to see if they can become one of the 3 best rated wedding photographers in their area.
I love it. That's awesome. Cool. Yeah, I think so those are pretty much our questions right now. Feel free to continue.
Cool. Well, all I've got left for you is a little bit of a workshop. And we'll keep this short so that we don't run over time. But I do want to talk a little bit about keywords, because any SEO basics talk should talk a little bit about keywords. So let's do this together. If you are in front of your computer, open up a note or open up a spreadsheet, and we're going to make a big list of possible keywords that you might want to go after, keywords and key phrases. Here's a few places to look that you might not have thought of. Your own website. So let's talk about that. We're going to look at your own website to see what phrases you use often. So here's an example of a client's website that I audited. And I wanted to see some of the phrases they were using that might be possible keywords that they could take better advantage of and rank on Google. So in this description of one of their wedding management packages, they use the terms day of coordination, month of planning. They use the phrase wedding coordinator. I noticed that some of the things that they offered included the wedding date timeline and coordinating a ceremony rehearsal. And also they do a floral donation after the wedding. So to me, all of these are opportunities. And I put them in the big old keyword spreadsheet that I always do. And I highly recommend that you do this as well. Go check out what are some of those keywords that are used on your own website and put them in a spreadsheet so that you could possibly do some steps later in this keyword research workshop and take better advantage of writing content about those items. All right, let's step back and look at some other places we can look for keywords in our big list. Doing that same process on your competitors' websites. So a website you like or a website that ranks well, what phrases are they using and really making prominent on their website? Those are things that you might add to your list. Now, I also want you to look at Google-related keywords. So Google itself is giving us some hints as to popular keyword phrases. So here's an example of that over on the right side of your screen. If I went to Google and I typed in Cincinnati wedding planner, as shown at the top, at the very bottom of the search results, I'm going to see this list that looks like this. And this might indicate to me some other things that I could write about. You can see that people that are looking for a Cincinnati wedding planner are also looking for wedding venues in Cincinnati. Hey, maybe I should put wedding venues Cincinnati on my keyword list, and I could consider writing a blog post about the 5 favorite wedding venues in Cincinnati. Maybe that gets ranked on Google. Obviously, there's searches for it. So we're getting some ideas here using Google-related searches. You can also use Google Auto Suggest. So this is when you start typing in the Google search box and some related suggested keywords show up underneath. So I'm looking for Houston wedding photographer. And I can see that sometimes people search for Houston wedding photographers affordable, or Houston wedding photography and video, or they want to specifically see information about photography packages. So these are all phrases I could also put on my keyword list and consider. Now, if I'm not a budget provider, I might not want to use the affordable keyword anywhere. But if you're just getting started and you do have really competitive pricing, you might actually want to optimize for these searches for an affordable wedding photographer. So you can put that on your list. So look at these and choose them carefully. All right, another really cool place to look for keyword ideas is to look at your customer reviews. So head over to the Knot and Wedding Wire and see what people are saying about you. This is so good because these are your ideal client's actual words, the actual phrases they're using. So if they're calling you a wedding day coordinator, that might be a common phrase in your area to describe what you do. Take a look at those reviews and see what words or phrases seem to show up. The other thing I really want to recommend that you do is to make a list of any questions that your clients or prospects ask you over and over and write those down. So one of the things that I've done for myself is I've also done this. So questions I get a lot, like what do I name my images? I actually wrote that down. I put it on my content plan and I wrote a blog post called What Do I Name My Images for SEO? And it is the most popular blog post on my website. And the title of it is literally a question that I get all the time. So that can be really good content for you to think about creating on your blog and answer to a really common question. And as a non-SEO bonus, you then have that piece of content available that you can just send the link when you get that question again in the future, because I know you're going to get those questions. All right, so hopefully we've got a little list of keywords, and when you're finished thinking about all of these things, you can highlight or circle the keywords that seem most important to you. And then let's go on to step number 2, which is to check your current rankings. Here's that link to the tool that I was mentioning, Keyword Rank Checker. It's on smallseotools.com. And you can actually put in some of those keyword phrases that you hope that you show up for, and you can put in your domain, and it's going to actually look throughout the internet to see where you rank for those phrases right now. So that's really important to check out. If you're going to start working on your SEO, give yourself a little bit of a report for where you are now so you can monitor your own improvement. It's really frustrating if you're working on your SEO and you can't remember what position you were in last week or 3 months ago, so you don't know if you've actually made progress. So take your most important keywords, check your current rankings, and as you're working on them, you can keep returning here and seeing if you're going up or down in the positions. Okay, so let's assume this is our very last step in our workshop, so stick with me. This is probably the most important thing that you can do to improve your SEO after this workshop, which is to look at your list of keywords and choose your biggest, most important. So most of us have this in mind. So this is your keyword phrase that's probably like wedding photographer in Kalamazoo, Michigan, or Grand Rapids wedding planner, that city or area and service type of keyword. I want you to choose that most important keyword, and I want it to use it really strategically on your homepage specifically. So again, in your homepage content, I mentioned that under being clear earlier, using that within some sort of sentence. So I am a wedding planner in Grand Rapids, and I specialize in memorable events. Now, there's a couple other places I'd like you to put it, and this depends on what platform you're on. So all you have to do is Google your platform and the words meta title and meta description. So Squarespace meta title, for example. And it's going to tell you where you're going to put this title that shows up for the search engines. I want you to put that keyword phrase in the meta title and the meta description. And this is exactly how you optimize any page or post for a specific keyword, is using that keyword really specifically in your content, in the meta title, and in the description. So that is our little workshop on keywords. And I hope that that gives you some ideas for what keywords you might use and what you might do with them once you identify them. And that's all I've got for you.
Oh, Sarah, thank you so much. I feel like I have learned so much from this that I just want to go and tackle it all right now. But I know we have run the full hour, so what we will do is we'll make sure we have some of the blog posts and some of the resources that Sarah has mentioned in the email that we send out following up. Make sure you also can always come back and watch the replay, because there's so much information that I'm sure you didn't even gather it all from watching the first time. But Sarah, I can't thank you enough for joining us today. This has been so valuable, and we really appreciate you taking the time to be here.
Definitely. I'm so glad to be here. And I want to invite you, if there was anything that I didn't answer, any question that came up for you, please send me an Instagram direct message or a contact form on my website, and I would be happy to get back to you regarding your situation. So please don't hesitate.
Amazing. Awesome. Everybody take her up on that. Follow her on Instagram. And great. Thanks so much for being here, and we'll catch you next time.
Thanks. See ya.
Bye.